Hey, we're back with another episode of Before You Buy, that show where we give you some straight up gameplay and our first impressions of the latest games releasing. As usual, it's me, Jake Baldino, and today we're talking about Silent Hill F. This is just like a completely new Silent Hill game. And this is extremely significant because, other than Short Message and the Silent Hill 2 remake, the franchise has been dormant since 2012. Back then, with Downpour and Homecoming, it felt like the franchise was starting to lose its edge, you know? For anybody other than the hardcore fans, it never felt like the franchise quite lived up to that legendary run of Silent Hill 1 through 4. Obviously, you can debate some of that, but I'm just generalizing here. So, with Silent Hill F, they went back to the drawing board completely. Like, new time period, new setting, new character, almost a completely different type of horror and presentation in some aspects. So, to not mince words here, right up front, Silent Hill's return is really solid. It's a pretty good game. It's not quite incredible. It's weird and flawed and sometimes frustrating, but it also scared me a few times. It's dripping in really good atmosphere, beautiful art, great environment design, and managed to try things and show me things that I haven't seen in a video game before. Some memorable moments. Look, I got quite a few complaints. It might sound like I'm hating on some aspects, but I want to make it clear, I'm glad I played through it. All Silent Hill games have flaws. There are some incredibly memorable moments and just cool-ass stuff here, and some of it is going to stick with me. I'd say diehard fans with an open mind, absolutely try it. More casual horror fans, maybe wait or watch some other reviews, but yeah. So I've been playing a review copy, and just so you know, this video is extremely spoiler-free, and this footage was captured running on a PS5 Pro. So, in Silent Hill F, you play as Hinako. She's a young girl in 1960s Japan in a small, quiet, kind of washed-up town. And look, you're not going to believe this. The town gets taken over by a mysterious fog, and weird, grotesque monsters show up. So, you venture through this foggy town, you're fighting monsters, also sometimes ending up transported to another strange world, all while not really sure what is real and what isn't. So, a pretty authentic Silent Hill-y experience. And it's a pretty straightforward, if sometimes super linear, third-person survival horror experience. I am personally really glad they didn't try and reinvent the wheel here. Silent Hill, if anything, has been survival horror with some weird sticking points, and that's once again the case here. So, combat, there is quite a bit of it in the game, actually more than I expected. This feels like one of the biggest changes, and I'm kind of mixed on it. Combat in Silent Hill games has never really been incredible, but I'm not going to give it a free pass completely here. It is a good mix of slow and deliberate while still very active at the same time, if that makes sense. So you have a very small stamina bar to worry about for attacks and dodging. You can get a perfect dodge and have a small window of opportunity, and even occasionally parry an enemy attack for bonus damage. Despite that empowering stuff, right, the main character is still slow and weak like a good survival horror game protagonist. So it's an interesting mix. 1 minute you can feel badass with like a perfect dodge, and then in another you can take a big swing of your weapon like a pipe or a crowbar at an enemy and completely miss. And since the animations are so slow, you can feel helpless in like a good survival horror way. You also have a sanity meter, which you need to spend carefully. If you run out of sanity, enemies that do sanity damage will instead whittle away at your health. This sanity meter lets you do special focus attacks that hit harder and potentially parry enemies easier. Items or prayer checkpoints can help fill the sanity meter back up. And on the normal difficulty, it's manageable, but turn it up and it's something you're going to need to pay attention to way more. My only issues with the combat are that in close quarters, like, interior sections and in small rooms, the game will often throw you an enemy, and it really turns into a mess. The camera gets jammed up, the lock-on already isn't great, so it just feels painful to deal with enemies in small indoor places, and you do a lot. And the other thing is, there's just a lot of combat and not enough variation throughout. So towards the end, it just feels like you get spongier enemies, the same enemies you've been fighting for hours and hours. So, whacking the hell out of an enemy you met 10 hours ago that was scary then, but isn't scary anymore, and you just keep smacking them until it dies and it's not going down for like 7 or 8 hits. It just gets kind of grating and dull after a while. There are some shakeups here and there, but by the end, I just really didn't look forward to another combat encounter. Also, there is weapon degradation. You can find more weapons or like repair kits to fix one you currently have. So it makes exploring off the main path a bit of a risk reward because the game is so combat heavy and the weapons are so breakable. It's always just happy to throw you more enemies. So was breaking your weapon, fighting 2 enemies on a side path worth it just to grab some extra healing items? It's going to be up to you. Like I said, risk reward. It can be stressful, and I do actually think it might piss some players off, but I didn't mind it. I kind of liked it. Still, combat has some good moments, and as much as I wanted more enemies and creatures, I will say they are mostly really awesome. I think there's like 1 or 2 misses that feel a little more generic, but like every other grotesque monster otherwise is a banger. Like just really gross, nasty, cringe-inducing in the best Silent Hill-esque ways, but also kind of with a different flavor. And that's kind of the theme of the whole game. Now, in terms of progression stuff, as you explore, you're gonna find items to cash in at a shrine, like they're like save points, to spend on what are essentially perks. Better health, a little better stamina, a bonus when dodging, smaller things like that. The shrine also lets you cash in normal items like, a health or a sanity restoring item or something like that. So inventory can be stressful because Hinako never has enough room and you're always juggling too many items on normal difficulty. Still, the opportunity to trade in a valuable item for a potential valuable upgrade is a nice option. The inventory management just feels a bit messy and unorganized, and there's just too many different item types that often end up doing the same thing. Now, like I said, in typical Silent Hill game fashion, you're in the town, but then you're also transported to darker, creepier places, and I think that the second area you're transported to is kind of 50-50. It starts off like a total, slog. Like it's just boring and dull, but it eventually gets a little more interesting. Still, it's never as visually incredible as classic Silent Hill worlds, but conceptually, some of the ideas they have going on in this world is cool and is worth it. Now, there are quite a bit of puzzles in this game, and the puzzles, which have their own difficulty slider, which I use the default one, and I still found them to be very challenging. Some of the puzzles really stuck me. Some of them I felt like they kind of like changed up their rules and didn't follow the rule. Like it's hard to explain, but maybe I'm dumb. Some of the puzzles I really struggled with. Some of them made me pull my hair out. The game also does commit the sin of locking you in a room because it is so linear. It locks you in a room and says, hey, you're not leaving, you're not progressing in the game until you solve this puzzle right in front of you. And that can be a little frustrating at times. Still, I think despite some of them being frustrating, they all felt unique. None of them felt repetitive. And, as much as they pissed me off, there is still some good puzzle design here. Also, not to mention the fact that like puzzle clues and certain hints and things like that are kept in Hinako's journal. Kind of like a Nathan Drake style journal thing that you can open up and see updated in real time throughout the game. It is worth visiting this journal all the time just because it's interesting. It has clues and it has additional story context, which I will say the story, there is a lot of stuff on the ground, pages, books, things to read, scraps of lore. It's worth checking out all of that because the story on the surface is vague. It's intentionally vague, but in a way that I think leads it to a lot of really fun interpretation. And I will say that, again, without spoiling anything, I think the story was the best aspect of this game. I don't know if it's going to satisfy everybody, but I think Silent Hill fans are going to have some fun with it. And I just found myself, as much as it was pretty linear and sometimes the combat frustrated me, like I just kept playing. I was hooked because I wanted to see what was going to happen next in the story. And I think that's important for these types of games. Also, visually, the game looks really damn good. As much as like the other world you're transported to fell a little flat in some aspects, the town and all the interiors you explore are filled with all kinds of cool little details. All the enemy types are gross and dripping with like disgusting horror details. The atmospheric effects, the soundscape, while nothing quite as memorable as Silent Hill 2, it still works really well for building tension and atmosphere. There are some moments of this game visually that were just like jaw-dropping. I would see some horrific thing in front of me or just catch a good angle of the town and I would go, wow, the art direction here is absolutely on point. And visually, playing on PS5 Pro, I didn't have any issues. It seems to be in a better state than Silent Hill 2 Remake was. It was smooth on my end. Again, I'm not Digital Foundry or anything like that. I'm not counting pixels, but I did notice that towards the end of the game, despite the frame rate being solid throughout, towards the end of the game, I did find a couple of sections where it was a bit more choppy. Not game breaking and not like, like it's like a deal breaker or anything like that, but worth pointing out. And there is a New Game Plus mode, which I think is very important to point out here for like something that I think is good and something that I think is bad. On the one hand, New Game Plus is heavily encouraged because, first of all, the difficulty mode differences make a difference, and that's good. But also, New Game Plus has a lot more content in terms of additional interiors I've seen, new items, new puzzles, new story elements, and it does feel like a lot more gets filled out throughout playing New Game Plus. And that's important to note. The only problem with that is I was pretty burnt out by the combat by this point. Like I said, by the end of the game, I was like, ugh, not another combat encounter. So jumping into New Game Plus, which I have spent some time in, I at first really didn't want to do it because I didn't want to deal with any more combat. But the amount of stuff they add in it actually surprised me. A good and a bad there, but I definitely think that the New Game Plus playthroughs are required. And ultimately, to come back around, the biggest thing for me is like, I want to see a good Silent Hill story, something that's interesting, weird, strange, and dark, and is also willing to take on subjects, subject matter that other games don't. Silent Hill has always kind of like pushed the boundaries there on what it touches on, and Silent Hill F does deliver in that regard. That's what I was looking for. I got it. And like I said earlier, I was hooked. I wanted to see what happened next. So I think this is a good return to the world of Silent Hill. Although I don't think it's like a 10 out of 10 masterpiece or anything like that, it is a good adventure with an interesting story, some decent payoff, a little bit of weird combat bits, but something I think Silent Hill fans should definitely give a try. But that's a before you buy. You know how this goes by now. I give you some pros, some cons, and some personal opinion, and now I want to hear yours down in the comments. How are you feeling? Were you looking forward to a new Silent Hill game? Are you checked out with Konami? Do you not want a Silent Hill game that does not take place in the town of Silent Hill? Like, are you open to this stuff? Let's talk anything Silent Hill and Silent Hill F down in the comments. Hit us up. If you like this video, like getting informed and stuff like that, clicking the like button helps us out. We appreciate that. You can follow me on social media at Jake Baldino for any additional questions. But that's it for you guys today. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.